Hello and welcome to Opt to Thrive, episode 37, Creating Momentum for Sustainable Body Composition Changes in Midlife.
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
Hello, welcome. Today is a unusual day. It's going to be like 29 degrees today, which is just crazy because it's a bit early for that kind of weather. It's a little bit overcast. Well, actually, it's a lot overcast, but it's going to be nice and warm. Yay. And lots of amazing spring blooms happening out there. I am really looking forward to my little tulips popping through the ground. They haven't done that yet, but I'm expecting them anytime. Really fun to see some of the other things happening. The clivia is in full bloom, and the rosemary, and my gerberas. I've got some beautiful strawberries coming through and some snow peas. Yay! It's been a lot of fun. And actually, there's a lot of work out there that needs to be done. And I'm not sure exactly when I'm going to get to that, but hopefully in the not too distant future. I have some very exciting things coming up. I've got Meg and Lockie coming home to see their mum next week, in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to have both of them home at the same time, which is just going to be so lovely. And, Megan coming home from Dubai, so I don't get a lot of time with her anymore. That's going to be very special. I've had a really fabulous morning. It's a Saturday, and I had a virtual coffee with my girls, my founding members for the Midlife Reset program, as we're getting ready to wrap up our 3 months together. So that's pretty exciting. And, making some decisions about where we go to from here, because I am very shortly going, in the not too distant future, going to open the doors to the next group. So, we need to make some decisions about where we go to from here. A good majority of those girls are, ready to carry on. I've set them up with all the tools they need, and they're feeling confident to carry on. We'll definitely be keeping in touch and offering some gentle support in the background. And there's a few girls that are kind of feeling like they're hitting their strides. They've got some work to do, and they still want to maintain a bit more high touch. So just kind of working that out. It's a lot of fun. I have just so loved having this time with these women and building this program that I think is pretty special. I'm pretty fond of it. And I feel like, for many years in general practice, I have told people, these short consults that are often rushed trying to take care of lots of different things and, trying to get this information out to people, and especially women at midlife, where we really start to struggle with body composition changes. And I don't mean just, gaining weight, but a lot of us will put that midsection weight on. That's just what happens around midlife. But, we're starting to get weaker, and we're losing our energy, and, lots of things going on. So giving a lot of this information to women, and especially over the last few years, as I've honed in on what's really happening to this midlife body and how we need to approach it differently than we have in the past, maybe. So I've got a lot more knowledge under my belt, and it's a lot of information to get across to women, and it can be very overwhelming. And so in short consults, and the time that I get with them in practice isn't always enough to help them create long-term sustainable change. Sometimes they just need a little bit more. They need a little bit more support and guidance and education. So the program it's just become such a passion for me, because I'm just finding I'm making a real difference in preventative medicine, right? Like, not with medication or, with all the lifestyle things that, we tell our patients. I'm actually feel like I'm filling that gap between the information and advice that I give patients and them actually implementing it. So there's a gap, and always has been. And I feel like I am now in the place where I can help them cross over that gap to get to the other side. And I am just finding it so fulfilling, just absolutely loving it. And that, along with my menopause clinic, wow, just such a good place to be in my career at this stage of my life. Yeah, very fulfilling. So today I'm right in the thick of preparing for what I'm calling a 6-day midlife reset challenge. It's an online challenge. That's another first for me. It is so fun, but man, there's a lot of working parts involved in organizing something like this. So a huge learning curve. I'm going to work out what a Facebook Live is in the next week or so, because I'm going to be doing a few of those as part of the challenge. And the reason I wanted to do this challenge, lots of reasons, really. First, because at the end of the week, I'm going to be opening the doors to the next coaching group that I'm going to let through. So the next cohort, which is very exciting. And so this is a good way for women to get a little taste of the program. I'll be doing some education around the tools that I use in the program. And as I said, those live calls, another terrifying first for me. But women can see what it's all about, see if we're a good fit. But just as importantly, I want to help all women build some momentum, maybe reignite some momentum and how they fuel and move their bodies, and give them some tools that really work, some long-term sustainable tools. So they'll walk away from this challenge with all the tools they need to make long-term sustainable changes. So that is so exciting. And they're going to have some momentum. And momentum is what we're talking about today. How exactly can we build momentum when we're trying to make body composition changes in particular? How do we get that ball rolling? I'm telling you, that ball in midlife often feels like you're pushing this super heavy lead square-shaped ball up a really steep hill. And sometimes it actually rolls back over you. That's what it feels like. Anybody out there relate? So there's lots of reasons for this, and I'm going to address those during the challenge. But quite often, I get patients come to me really frustrated with midlife weight gain, and they just want something to help them kickstart their efforts. They feel like if they can just get started, they'll be able to keep it up because they just keep stop starting. And this opens up a whole lot of conversation, because weight loss, both the losing and the keeping off of weight, especially at midlife, just isn't as simple as that. You may have worked that out like I did. And so today I want to share the best advice I have during the stage of life to create and sustain momentum, and to what feels like take back some control over our body composition. So how much fat we have and how much muscle we're carrying around. To start off, we really need to be sure the groundwork is set. If you're trying to plant a flower in concrete, you're going to make things really difficult, if not impossible, right? So what am I referring to? First and foremost, if you are struggling with menopausal symptoms, especially if one of those is jacked up sleep, you have got to get that sorted. You are truly spinning your wheels if you are trying to make body composition changes and you're not sleeping. You need to get that sorted out. And the same goes for stress management. This midlife period has, this really unique set of stressors for lots of us. We could be caring for aging parents, still helping our own children, whether they're at home or they're not. We could have relationship stressors, especially if your libido has tanked. That can add a whole new set of stressors for us. We're often managing work and financial stressors, and if we've got brain fog, then all of this is that much more stressful. I did forget my dentist appointment the other day, even with a reminder the day before. So it's like we've hit the stressor lottery. And then to add to that, many of us are not real great at prioritizing ourselves. And many of us don't practice overly nice self-talk. We do a lot of caring for a lot of other people and things, and often without so much as a thank you, let alone, you're doing a great job, chica. So right now, before we go any further, I want each and every one of you women listening to me right now to take just a brief second. I want you to reach around and give yourself a warm, fuzzy pat on the back and tell yourself what a great job you're doing and how much you appreciate it. All right. You done it? Better have. And you know what? Even if you do have some beautiful people in your life who do take a second out to appreciate you, good for you. That is awesome. But you still deserve to give yourself a little self-compassion and praise too. I honestly believe that if we all took a little time out of our day to do this for ourselves and look back at the day and at the things we did well, instead of beating the crap out of ourselves about the things we didn't do perfectly, and if we can remind ourselves that we're all just doing the best we can, I believe there would be a lot less comfort eating going on. Just saying. And there'd be a lot more joy and peace in our lives. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, got the hormones sorted, the sleep is sorted, and we're giving ourselves a bit of grace. And now what? Well, those women who come to me asking for help to help them get the ball rolling are on to something. They know if they can see some progress, some small wins, that will give them encouragement. And that, my friends, is absolutely the key to building momentum. It is the secret sauce right there. Small wins. If I could give you a plan rather than a script to get you started, it would look like this. I would get you to pick one thing that you wanted to start with. If it's body composition goals or health habit goals, doesn't matter. The first step is putting it on your calendar now. Look at the week ahead and decide when you're going to do it. Now, I'm going to warn you before you do this. There's going to be a temptation that you get your calendar and you plug in about a gazillion things that sound good on paper, but not necessarily things that you're overly all that interested in doing. And maybe right now they sound amazing, but on the day, be honest. Are you going to want to do it? And if you force yourself into it and you hit the floor running at top speed, how long do you reckon it's going to be before you quit? This is very likely the reason that you've started before. We just go too hard too soon. So there are 5 main pillars I focus on in managing body composition and health: sleep, stress, nutrition, exercise, which includes both resistance exercise and cardiovascular exercise, and then non-exercise movement. Some of the reasons we put on excess weight around this midlife period have to do with the calories we're not burning because of the muscle we no longer have and the movement we're no longer doing outside of exercise, meaning incidental movement. We're not fidgeting as much, we're sitting more, we get up less, that kind of thing. Many of us have also developed some emotional eating patterns. Remember those pats on the back? Maybe sometimes that's all we need. Maybe we just need to be a little bit kind, right? Some of us are also having a bit more alcohol than we used to, maybe a few more cheese platters and takeaways. And if you add to this the hormonal impacts on our sleep, our energy, and our stress levels, it's like a perfect storm. So if our goal is to improve our body composition, we want to lose some body fat, we want to look more toned, so muscle, then we need to have a plan that addresses all of those components. We've talked about the sleep and the stress components, and I've done podcasts on both of these topics in the past. I'll pop those links in the show notes in case you want to check them out. And remember, menopause can be a stress in itself. So again, those symptoms need to be managed. And that's a conversation you need to have with a healthcare provider who is up to date on the different treatment options. But then I would pick one of those things off that list to start with. We know we need to address all the things, especially if we want long-term sustainable changes, and that is where we can get really overwhelmed and often stop ourselves from even starting. Like, where do I start? I need to do all these things. So I suggest you find the lowest hanging fruit. If right now you feel the easiest first step is to address your nutrition, then start there. If it's working out an exercise program, then start there. Let's just say, for the sake of having an example, that you've chosen exercise to start with. Maybe you don't mind exercise. Maybe you're really craving feeling stronger and less jiggly. Or maybe you're really motivated to just get off the ground a little easier or keep up with your kids or your grandkids. Great. If it's exercise, then I'd break it down into resistance and cardiovascular, and I would decide which of those two I wanted to start with. I always start with resistance, by the way. That one always gets my vote. Again, though, I would be asking myself what things I like to do or don't mind doing or would like to try. If that means booking in at a gym to get a program or looking online for an online program I could do at home, that's where I would start. And that may even look like just putting the time on my calendar to look at organizing something, right? On Tuesday, I'm going to call the gym and book in a session with the trainer. On Tuesday, I'm going to get online and look at apps. I'm going to ask ChatGPT what I should be doing. I don't care. Put it on the calendar. I want you to pick a day this week you are really confident you could get that one thing done and book it in. I wouldn't put more than 2 days at most on the calendar this week. It needs to be really doable. You need to hold yourself back, right? You need to just restrain. And those 2 days shouldn't be full-on crazy sessions either. Again, it needs to be really doable and not overwhelming. I want you to be doing enough that you feel like you've made a good solid start, but not so much that you're sore for a week or you can't sit on the toilet for 2 days, which then makes you dread going back, right? It's really hard to make a blanket recommendation because many of us are starting at different points. You need to force yourself to be super realistic. Start low and go slow. Each week, look at the week ahead and put your workout or workouts on the calendar. It may be really helpful even to have a calendar on your refrigerator like I do. And in big, bold letters, write in the days that you're going to do your workouts. That way, you keep getting reminders every time you go to the fridge or you walk through the kitchen. And everyone else in the house can see that very public commitment that you've made, which can also be really helpful with some accountability cues as well. The idea is that every week you are reevaluating how you're going and you're gauging whether you're ready to bump up your sessions, either in time, intensity, or days, until you're at the sweet spot. A reasonable aim is to have 2 or 3 resistance training days and a couple of cardio days each week, but you're not starting there, right? When I say that, that sounds really overwhelming, especially if you're coming from someone who hasn't gotten off the couch for 5 years, right? That's just where you're headed in the future. You want to start very low and go slow. Take your time getting to that goal. Be kind to yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. The aim is to get consistent in time. In terms of momentum, each time you show up for yourself and you tick that day off the calendar as completed, this will couple with how much better you're feeling and all the positive mental and physical effects, and this will build momentum. And once you feel like you're off and running with your exercise goal and feeling like this is coming along well and you're not spending too much brain power on it, you're just rinsing and repeating, the momentum is behind you, then you may want to start looking at your nutrition piece, especially if your goal is to shed some body fat. You don't have to have one completely down pat before starting the other one. But once you're feeling like you're in the swing of it and you feel like you have some capacity to add in something else, then I would start in the exact same way. Work out a plan, even put a date on the calendar to work out a plan, and go from there. So if you did exercise first and now you're adding in the nutrition component, my advice would be to start with just optimizing your protein. When you're building muscle and or when you're losing body fat, in both of these scenarios, it is really important to be sure you're getting enough protein to build muscle or to protect the muscle that you have. When we lose weight, we're at risk of losing muscle mass as well. And at this stage in our lives, especially, we do not want to lose any more muscle mass. Having enough protein is important to do what we can to safeguard against the loss of muscle when we're in a calorie deficit. Having said that, resistance training is just as, if not more important in this scenario as well. So if you're starting with nutrition, I would be adding in resistance training as the next step rather than cardio for this exact reason. You need the stimulus to build the muscle. Okay, but how much protein is enough protein? In this setting, I recommend 2 grams per kilo of body weight up to 150 grams a day. The only caveat to that is if you have some significant kidney issues, so significance, the key word there, then you're going to want to run that past your doctor first. But for most people, these targets are good. And most people are nowhere near these targets. So again, the key is to start low and go slow. I would look at how I could get 30 grams of protein into breakfast. Then I would plan for that. I would work out what I needed to buy in my weekly shop to have those brekkies this week. Then I'd work on finding ways of consistently meeting this target. Once I got that down, I felt really comfortable with that. That's a no-brainer, easy to do, rinse and repeat. I'd look at the next meal. Maybe I'd look at lunch and then at dinner and then at snacks. They don't have to be in that order. If lunch is the meal you want to start with, start there. The idea is one step at a time. Low-hanging fruit. What's going to be the easiest one to start with? Get some wins and then move on to the next one. We want to be strong and functional and maintain a desirable body composition for the rest of our lives. So it makes sense then to just take our time finding our way to what we will be happy eating and doing that fits into our lives for the long term. Once you're happy you've got the protein piece, I'd move to targeting my fiber or getting at least 25 grams a day. Same way. How can I get more fiber into breakfast? How can I get more fiber into lunch, snacks, dinner? Start with one and keep building on. And then once I'm pretty happy with those things, I would then work out how I can meet these targets with a calorie budget that would also allow me to lose some body fat. Cutting back very gently, only a few hundred calories a day, so you aren't feeling ravenous. This is going to result in a nice, gentle fat loss while preserving your muscle mass. And for some of you who are new at resistance training, you're probably even going to put on some muscle mass if you do these things that I'm telling you with resistance training, progressive overload, while you're losing body fat at the same time. It's a slow process, but as I said, it's a long-term sustainable approach as opposed to fad diets that you can't sustain, leave you frustrated, feeling hopeless, stop starting all the time, and often regaining weight plus some with a worse body composition than you started out with. Take your time, momentum will build, and you will be rinsing and repeating in no time. In a fit, strong body, your future self is going to love you for. All right, guys, I hope that has been helpful. This episode is coming out the week before I open the doors to my Midlife Body Reset program. If you're interested, there will be a link in the show notes, so click on through and have a look. If you haven't rated and reviewed the podcast yet, could you please take a second to do that for me, pretty please? Just makes the podcast more accessible and visible to those who could also use this information. I am so appreciative of you, listener, for taking your time out to have a listen today. I hope, again, this information has been helpful for you. And if you can think of a friend or a relative who could use this information, please pass it on. I hope you have a great week, everyone. And until then, I hope you opt to thrive.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts for medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at optothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.